Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Play It By Ear podcast, episode 2. It's been a while in the making, but we are back, and we're back in business. We're joined once again by my old friend and musical colleague, Dr. Keith Currie. And because of world events being what they are at the moment, we're live on Zoom for a little bit of a chat, and maybe a song or two, if I can persuade him. Keith and I have been friends for over 30 years, and we've always had a shared interest in music, and Keith is right now taking that to another level, as you'll hear in this podcast. I think you'll agree with me, he is really finding his feet with the banjo, or finding his fingers, if you will. There are a lot of ums and a lot of stutterings. I'll say it before all the critics do. I thought it was hard interviewing a stranger, but it's even harder when you're interviewing a mate. But if you can put up with it, so can I. If you want to get in touch with me, or you'd like to appear on the Play It By Ear podcast, there are only two things you need to be. Either a blind musician, or a musician who does not use music in any way. That is, you do not read music. Obviously, you use music because you play it. But if you play by ear, you're welcome to be interviewed with me on the podcast. Just bring an instrument, be yourself, and enjoy it. You can email me at Jack, J-A-C-K, Scrimshaw, SCRIMSHAW @gmail.com. Or just leave a comment here on the YouTube page, and I'll try and get back to you that way. Right now, friends, over to the two doctors. Enjoy it. Welcome to the Play It By Ear podcast, episode 2. We'll have got all that out of the way in the separate intro bit, but with me, I have once again banjo player extraordinaire, possibly with some background from chess as well. I have Dr. Keith Currie. Welcome to the podcast, Keith.
Oh, thank you, Jack. Thank you very much for having me. It's
a
a pleasure to be here.
Oh, not at all. You're the only one brave enough to sign up at this point. But we're not live at this point, obviously, because world events being what they are. We are currently doing this via Zoom, which is a bit odd. But before we started, I heard some tinkling of an instrument. So you've come armed by the sound of it.
I have indeed. I've got my old faithful here.
Wonderful. Well, let's begin at the beginning. That's always a good place to start. So tell everybody then, what got you going with music? What age did you start? Because I know full well banjo was not your first instrument.
It certainly wasn't. No, I started out like I think so many teenagers who were growing up in the 90s did. I started out on guitar, and initially the electric guitar. I didn't actually switch to an acoustic guitar until I was about 18. And then I started playing that more. Of course, I was a teenager. I was into unlistenable metal bands and all sorts of things like that. I didn't really know much about roots music or folk or anything like that until I went to university, and kind of had my eyes open there, and I learned that I could do all of these cool and eerie things on other instruments. I didn't need distortion. I didn't need anything like that. Took me a while longer to stumble upon the banjo.
Literally, I should say, of course, the podcast is Play It By Ear. You, like myself, are completely blind, have been from birth.
Yes, absolutely.
So you can't, for you, it's not a case of jumping onto Google and looking for the tab for this song, the tab for that song. You're literally learning by ear or by YouTube, which is still by ear in our cases.
Yes, so that's correct. And YouTube has been a real blessing, I think, for a lot of musicians.
YouTube is tremendous. I mean,
absolutely.
Say what you want about the modern world. The technology we have at the moment is unbelievable. I mean, look at this, what we're doing now. This would have been unimaginable, say, not even 100 years ago, 30 years ago.
Yes, certainly. I mean,
look at now.
When the internet happened for us, it was a real revelation, wasn't it? That we could, we could talk to people from all over the world. We could learn a lot, and I think that's how, certainly how you and I have kept in touch over all of these years as well.
Very, very many years, yeah.
Yeah.
Episode 1, of course, came to be, which was I have to say now, was really well received by everybody that's listened to it, everybody that tuned in, and thank you to all of you that did tune in for episode 1.
I'm very glad to hear that people liked it.
They certainly did. Lots of talk about your amazing banjo picking. So you go from heavy metal, distorted guitars, bands like Puddle of Mud, Cradle of Filth,
Good old Ladle of Fluff,
to roots music, the wonderful world of roots and folk music. I mean, on Play It By Ear, I'm hoping to talk to people from sort of all sides of the coin, if you know what I mean. I'm just going to check that our recording's still working here.
Mm-hmm.
And it is. So what was that all about, for want of a better word?
I can't really... I think when I was a kid, I just wanted to make noise. And once I went to university and I met friends of mine who weren't metalheads, and they introduced me, it was a slow process through people like Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, Tom Waits. Tom Waits was a very, very important influence.
Great Tom Waits, yes.
And it was the song Gun Street Girl on the Rain Dogs album that really kind of made me think, oh, you know what, I fancy a go on one of these here banjos. But it took a long time. And we went from metal through Nick Cave, Tom Waits, Mark Lanigan, another very important influence on me.
Great guy, yes.
Yes. Very, very interesting life as well. And then I found a band called 16 Horsepower who were playing this rather strange sounding thing called alternative country. And I listened to them, and they do a lot of folky, rootsy stuff. And that really, it kind of blew the roof off of my musical world. And I thought, I want to be part of this. I want to be able to make all of this beautiful, haunting, atmospheric music. And the leader of that particular band was a banjo player.
Right.
And that's really what got me going. I thought, I want a part of this. If he's making this instrument make all of those cool noises, I want to do that. And then
it is a very bright, cool instrument, the banjo. I mean, I myself, I can't help but feel happy whenever I hear or play a banjo. I don't know about you.
Oh, definitely. I think the thing I love about the banjo is that it's so versatile. You can have a really, really happy, like standard G tunings or double C. Those are really happy tunings. But then there's all of those weird modal tunings and alternative, like the D tunings, which I'm sure we'll talk about a bit later.
Yeah, but we're going to talk about all of that.
Yeah, it's an instrument of so many moods. And you can play anything on the banjo. You can play folk, you can play blues, you can play gospel, anything you like.
Now, we're leaning very heavily on the banjo. Sorry to interrupt, but you are a multi-instrumentalist as well. We know from episode 1. You chuckle, but there's a guitar, at least one guitar around there. You've got a lovely mandolin, which you've been sort of trying to pick up and play as much as you. And as I say, I only say this because we're leaning on the banjo. Do you see yourself picking up the mandolin, having a go with that, or is it? The banjo's your main instrument, and the others are sort of not taking a back seat, but they're the alternative.
Playing second fiddle, as it were.
Oh, very good.
No, I'm definitely playing the banjo primarily. I still love playing guitar, and I've been doing lots of cool stuff with open tunings on the guitar and some slide work, which is beginning to take shape.
Yes.
And the mandolin as well. Yes, I really do enjoy playing my mandolin. I can do at least a couple of songs on it that sound pretty decent, and I'm happy with that. And I'm really keen to keep learning it.
That's always a good start, and hopefully you're on the channel. We'll have some, bit of a shameless plug here. We should have some more mandolin lessons to come.
more of those tab-free lessons are very, very much in order.
Oh, bless you. You're too good to me. But we had to get a shameless plug in somewhere.
We did.
Now, when I was interrupted for my first phone call, I heard you picking away. That's not standard G, is it, on the banjo?
No. I've come down considerably. I think I was aiming for F, but to be honest, I've got into the habit of tuning the banjo best to suit my voice.
Yeah, and like Pete Seeger did.
Yeah. And that, for me, a lot of the time, it does mean coming down lower than standard G. But I also love modal tuning. So I'm in what would be G modal, but relative. So that probably modal F or something like that. But what we call the sawmill tuning.
Yeah. Do you want to go through it note by note for us? Just so I think I know. I think I would call it long neck tuning by the sound of it. But do you just want to go through each of your strings there, just to?
I will do. I'll go from high string, what would be low D, what would be the G, what would be the C, and what would be the D. And that's equivalent, so I know it's a bit lower than that.
That is long neck tuning, long neck banjo tuning for all you first timers. So basically, that's what they call the Seeger banjo. For all those that don't know what it is, go and look up Pete Seeger after this. For those of you that do, they will be saying this guy plays a lot of Irish folk music.
And I would love to. I don't know nearly enough Irish folk.
Oh, well, give it time. We'll be planning that visit after all this is done.
Definitely, because what I want to learn to do is learn how to integrate the 5-string banjo into what is something that is traditionally associated with four-string banjos. And I know there are ways to play some of those Irish songs.
There are lots of ways. I mean, you said it best. The banjo can literally work with anything, which is what I've been trying to tell people the last few years, as well.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
it's an incredibly versatile instrument.
When I got my most recent baby, the first thing I played on it was the Beatles, believe it or not. But you've got it there. Would you feel happy giving us a quick burst of a tune, maybe a song?
Yeah, definitely. I can do. This is a version of the Cuckoo Bird, but it's worked up from a version I've seen done by Clifton Hicks.
Wonderful. And
it's a little bit different. It's using, I believe, what they call the Galax lick, where you do. But it's a little bit more syncopated than that. But I'll give you a burst of the Cuckoo.
Go for it.
1, 2, 3, 4. Well, the cuckoo, she's a fine bird, and she sings as she flies. Well, she brings us good tidings, and she tells us no lies. Well, she sips the sweet nectar, for to make her voice ring clear, and she brings us good tidings in the springtime of the year.
Fantastic stuff. Oh,
yes. Very much.
We love that. Zoom made it even more interesting with a few wangs and wongs in there, but
yes. I also think my one of my strings was slightly out of tune there, so that might sound a bit.
At all. If anything, it added to it, if you know what I mean. Sometimes that can happen.
Brilliant.
Now that style, it's not quite bluegrass. It's not quite frail. I don't know what the hell to call that style. I think you stumbled across a sort of unique style there. What would you call it? I mean, who are your influences?
Well, classically by people like Clarence Tom Ashley, who was one of the first people to record the Cuckoo Bird.
Yes.
I've taken it in a slightly different direction. As I said, I learnt that particular way of playing it from Clifton Hicks, who learnt it from a guy called George Gibson, a very famous East Kentucky banjo player. And it's played, it is played overhand using the frailing technique, but there's a lot more of what we call that Galax lick, where you let all the strings ring like that, only syncopate it so you get more of a kind of sound.
So it's a bit of a brush and a hammer-on combined by the sound of it.
It is. There's a lot of left hand work.
Yeah, the left hand is hammering on, and the right hand is doing that lovely Seeger-esque brush across the string,
Yeah,
making them ring
and then
out.
of course in the verse part, there's just a very hard driving. Sounds almost like a blues lick to me. You know, that sounds very bluesy to me.
It was very bluesy, yeah, and the way you were singing it as well, because with the best will in the world, a lot of people, when they sing an old song like that, their instinct is, and myself included, he says, elbowing himself in the ribs, is to southern it up. Well, the cuckoo, she's a pretty bird. And
I always
it's a mountain song, but
yeah,
it's an English song.
It is originally, yes. It looks quite different, the original English version, to what the Americans sing. And of course, they've inserted that patriotic reference to the 4th of July, obviously the War of Independence.
Yes.
And they've transformed it. But I used to think to myself, I sing these American songs, and I thought, if I'm singing them in a like a really, a put on Southern accent, it's not authentic, and it might distract people from the music. I think we should all try to sing in the accent that we have. Of course, the temptation is very, very strong to sort of slip into the Clarence Ashley.
I would argue for some songs it can be more authentic. I mean, I do it a lot with the Irish songs. Some of the American songs, I mean, I will southern it up, but I guess for another word, hillbilly it up, like to sort of make yourself sound 90. I wouldn't necessarily advise doing that, because you can take off your song doing that.
It's silly, and it's almost, I don't want to use the word cultural appropriation, but it's almost, it's
mocking.
It's almost like we're extracting the Michael.
Yeah, mocking the song.
Yeah. What I prefer to do is, there are some times in that particular type of fast country music where there's a lot of yipping and yelping, like, you go, woo!
Yeah.
All of that kind of thing. That's what I do, and that's my nod to where those songs come from, just because I think
I'm all in favour of that. I love it in folk music when there's lots of yoops and things like that. It's so expressive for the music.
It is. It really is. Because these are
enjoying ourselves when we play.
Yeah. Well, a lot of these are dance pieces as well, and that's what you want. You want people to be dancing and going a bit crazy while you're playing these songs.
Hence why I'm trying to learn the fiddle.
Yes, I look forward to that day. I've already heard your Shady Grove.
My neighbours are.
I look forward to us being able to do Shady Grove together as a banjo and fiddle duo.
Really looking forward to that. Yeah, I mean, my style is very different to yours, but I think, to be honest, that complements us. I mean, Martin Simpson does a similar thing, although he actually did spend 10 years in the USA.
He did,
so
yeah.
If he does southern them up, he does it well. I mean, I've got nothing but admiration for Martin Simpson. I think he's one of our best slide guitar players of.
Oh, he's fantastic. And he's shared a lot of his quote unquote secrets with us, so we know that he uses banjo tunings on the guitar quite a lot.
Yes, he does.
And yeah, that gives it a certain something.
And we could,
of course,
really guitar geeky and talk about what he uses, but
we could.
Wise that is, not tunings wise. Tunings we can talk about, because there's lots of open Ds and open Gs.
There are indeed, yes. And open C. I tried C minor for the first time a while back.
Very Indian style. I remember when you tried that on the banjo.
Yes, it was the German war tuning, wasn't it? I think, what is that? F sharp B G A D.
On the banjo, it's almost comical, but if you change it to the guitar, very dark.
Yes,
very dark tuning, especially with a slide. And I want to get your point on this, because I'm hearing from some slide players, we won't name and shame, who say slide playing should be squeaky clean. There should be no squeaks, no buzzes. I disagree in the strongest.
I couldn't disagree more. Have these people not listened to Sunhouse?
Indeed,
his slide is all over the place, and he's never got it. He's never got it exactly on to the neck of the guitar. He's got it at an angle as it goes up that fretboard.
I call it dirty blues for a reason.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's not an insult, it's a compliment.
Definitely. And that's how I like to play slide on the banjo, so you do get that little bit of a dirtiness to it. Because I think it's great, and I think it demonstrates that the banjo is just as much a blues instrument as any other.
You've mentioned Sunhouse. Who else do you listen to blues-wise? And do any of those players influence you?
Some of them really do. Like, I took a lot from the Chicago blues and how to belt out a song. That's kind of Howlin' Wolf. He's one of my favorite bluesmen. I love Sunhouse, Robert Johnson, Skip James, Mississippi John Hurt.
Yes, Brother John Hurt. What a guitar player.
Yes, blues is one of those things that I'm learning. There's so much of it, and acoustic blues as well. I think we all got a bit distracted after the 60s, and we thought that blues was now an electric thing.
Not at all.
But no, for me, acoustic blues there's something about it. You can't beat it.
Blues to me is like an onion. There are just layer after layer after layer of different kinds. And it begs the question, you sing bluesy, you play bluesy, you've never touched a harmonica.
I dabble. I'm not very good on the harp yet, but give me...
Right,
no, I have...
tab free.
I have what I need. I have... my mother-in-law very kindly bought me an octave of harmonicas.
Oh, wonderful.
And Chess also brought me a harmonica frame, so that I'm in the process of trying to learn how to play the harmonica and other instruments at the same time.
Don't run before you can walk would be the best advice for you and anybody listening out there.
That is very, very good advice. But I love the harmonica. I'm eager to integrate it into my playing.
It looks easy, but it's not. Very quick story. I tried that on stage once. I thought I was good enough to try it on stage. Tried to pull the rack down for my solo and basically smacked myself in the mouth.
Those racks are hard to get to grips with, aren't they?
They're evil things. When you're at home and you're relaxed and you're fine, you're all good. But when you're outdoors and it's a hot day and you're trying to do it as quick as you can, ouch.
No,
it doesn't work.
No. So, well, that's a little bit further in my future, but I'm sure I will have a similar mishap. You know.
Oh, give it time. Give it time. I'm sure you'll be telling a story yourself about that at some point. So you took us to the 11th century with the cuckoo, and why shouldn't a song change after
exactly songs change and migrate, and people add different verses here and there. The intention of the song changes sometimes.
According to the culture and who's singing it and where singing it. I mean, we have to remember it's only recently that the musician's friend came out, and that's the tape record. Because
yes,
you just have to keep going back.
And musicology is an infant thing still as well, and thanks to I think there was a lot of groundwork laid in the 20th century with those guys who went out and did field recordings and. And really, we're still making sense of music and of its history and of how it migrates and how it metamorphoses. There's a good word.
Oh, that's a fantastic word. Yes, it is very much still coming out of the chrysalis. I think acoustic. It hibernated for a bit, acoustic music, and now it's back with a vengeance, especially because of the
definitely. Yeah, I was just about to say we have the internet to thank for that. And while, we're worried that it might do irreparable damage to music if we're talking about commercial music, no, actual roots music seems to be alive and well.
And always will be, I think, now. It was, dare I say, not on life support, but we were worried for it for a while there, but now it's back and it's becoming what it used to be again. If the terrible events of the last few weeks have done one thing, it's encouraging people to entertain themselves again. Play at home.
Definitely.
Speaking of which, how about another song?
Definitely. Now, I'm going to retune. I've taken us into my equivalent of standard G.
Okay.
And I thought I would demonstrate an entirely different style of playing after Doc Boggs, who's become, as you know, a hero of mine.
Yes, and mine also, now, since you told me about it.
He is a fantastic, and a real, like, a bluesman as well, you know.
Yeah.
He was one of the first people to say, look, blues, you can play it on the banjo. You can match a blues guitarist note for note. You just have to know how.
Well, you're pretty much playing in guitar tuning there with that E tuning that you're in.
I am indeed, yes.
Yep, hit as a lick, as they would say.
Right, let's go. I was out walking around one night when I met with old Wild Bill Jones. He was walking and talking with a girl I love, and I begged him for to leave her alone. He said my age is 22, far too old for to be controlled. So I pulled my revolver from off my side and destroyed that poor boy's soul. Well, he rambled and he scrambled and he fell to the ground, and he gave one dying moan. And he threw up his arms all around her neck, says, oh, darling, you are left alone. I got money in my pocket and a pistol in my hand. Look for the man I made a Wild Bill stand.
Fantastic stuff.
Thank you
Absolutely
very much.
fantastic. I absolutely love that tuning.
It's great, isn't it?
It really reminds me of the late Pete Seeger. It really does, because that was his tuning on the long neck. Except he dropped the what would be the D, the bass string, which is your B. He would drop it to A. But
He would tune right down in E, yeah.
Yeah, I actually think it sounds better the way you have it, your version of E-tuning. And you've really stumbled, even in this last year, because of course we did episode 1 last year, you've stumbled across a very unique style of playing, I think. What was it about Doc Boggs that helped you? Because I'm assuming he's partially responsible for this.
Yes. And people who have tried to penetrate and explain the Doc Boggs style. There's a gentleman called Colin Basley who's done some wonderful instruction videos on Doc Boggs and the Boggs playing style. And I think for me, it was because it reminded me of guitar picking and that sort of syncopated guitar picking of the blues. But it's just the way he plays and the way he accentuates certain notes and the sparing way he uses the fifth string. Because what Boggs is doing is he's not stroking down, he's picking up with his fingers. So he's using his thumb to handle the first 2 strings and the high string. And the top 2 strings here, he's using his index and his middle finger. So very interesting playing style.
Very, very like as you say.
Yeah. And it's one that I found once I've got to grips with it, and it did I spent a long time just going. Practice makes perfect and all that. You do, as with the frailing stroke, when people are trying to learn the frailing stroke, you literally do have to sit there for hours in some cases.
Yeah. You have to be able to do it in your sleep.
You do.
And just be comfortable with it. I mean, I'll say it here and now, folks. I wish I had his fingers. I wish I could do what he does on the banjo with my fingers. They just will not. Well, to quote Ricky Skaggs, they won't wiggle. So I'm a flat picker. That was going to be. I'm going to do a series of quick fire questions, if you don't mind, here for you. And that's
not at all.
Flat pick, finger picks, or nothing.
For me, nothing. Even when I'm picking the guitar, I can use a pick, but I prefer not to. For the mandolin, I have to use a pick because you mess your fingers up if you don't. But for the banjo, no picks.
So many blind people say that. There are times I feel like a bit of a freak among the blind musicians because I'm one of the very few flat pickers, but just don't have the responsive fingers.
I can't flat pick, so you've got one on me there. So.
Well, I don't know about that. Last year you said you couldn't play the banjo, so
this is true.
We all know that's rubbish. I'd to think of family-friendly expression there. Open back or resonator when it comes to banjos?
I have both. My open back's not in playing order at the moment, but personally for me, a resonator. They give you more volume, and when you're hammering away at them, there's something so satisfying about that amplified sound.
It's more comfortable as well, I have to say.
It is. It makes an open back is, of course, lighter, but I like the weight of a resonator. It fits very comfortably against the belly as well.
I'm going to get shot by a lot of these banjo pickers, but I do think you lose sound in an open back, no matter how good it is, and no matter how
you do. And they're also a bugger to keep in tune as well, especially if you're using old fiddle pegs.
Yeah, I could rant on about these so-called reproduction mountain banjos, for a long while that use the old fiddle pegs and the gut string. Absolutely needless. You don't need all that. If you can play, you can play.
Unless you are going for like trying to recreate, because I've seen people do really interesting things with Nile gut.
A lot of the banjos aren't made for it though, and you can.
No, they're not.
Very, very badly. I would strongly. It's like all you guitar players out there, and you yourself, Keith, will know what I'm going to say next. It's like putting nylon strings on a steel string acoustic. You may not damage it straight away, but over time.
You will tear it apart.
Yeah, and vice versa. So I really wouldn't advise it. I mean, you've shown right there. You've got that old time style down, for want of a better word. Acoustic or electric?
Acoustic now. It used to be electric, but then I grew tired of noise.
Me too. Has to be said.
And I might still want to play electric guitar in the future. And I probably will, but at the moment I'm getting more pleasure from my acoustic instruments.
Ditto, yeah. I get more pleasure listening to a really good electric guitar player than me murdering the thing.
Yes, although I love rhythm and I love the riff, and occasionally sometimes that old need does need to be satisfied. Yes. I'll whack the guitar on and play some Black Sabbath songs or something.
Well, that kind of answers my next question: rhythm or lead?
Rhythm. Definitely. I love the thing I love about the banjo is that you can do really complicated embellishments, but it's still rhythm. You can do, we do hammer-ons, pull-offs, alternating pull-offs, open string pull-offs.
It can be as simple or as complicated as you want it. That's the beauty of the banjo.
Definitely.
Even on the 6 string, which is what I play because it suits my voice better. And as I said, I don't have your fingers, so 5 isn't always practical. You're not playing now, of course, but in the past, before all this started, were you playing any local gigs or anything like that?
No, never really. I was playing in my living room for friends. And I've suffered from chronic underconfidence for years and years and years. And it was only after you visited us in old 2016 and we started jamming together that I began to get the taste for it. And I've played very, very small gigs over the last year or so to help my girlfriend out with certain things she was doing with her work, and I've really enjoyed that. And certainly once it's safe again, I think I'll be taking the banjo out to open mic nights. And
I really hope so, because that music must be heard.
I've got the hunger for it.
And where you live as well,
yeah.
you know, we're not going to say where exactly, but where you live, I know there's quite the folk scene, so it might be worth, as well as the open mic, some of these folk clubs, some of them can be very cliquey, but there are still really good ones who welcome you in with open arms, and sometimes they've been the best playing experiences of my life, and I think they will be yours too. With that lovely stuff.
I think so, and I'm really excited to get involved. And then of course I you know, you and I have got plans to collaborate as well.
Yeah, that's true. Gotta get that fiddle down. We're nearly out of time. I should say your girlfriend Chess plays as well. I'm not gonna pull the rope and ask her to play because I know what response I'd get. I think. But
if you're interested, you can find her at Cook with a Uke.
Cook with Uke?
Yes.
Yeah, she's a fine ukulele player friend. So Cook with Uke, that's the channel. YouTube.com/Cook with Uke. Or if you're even further north than I am, Cook with Uke. Whatever that means. It sounds great. But, Keith, we're nearly out of time. Can we persuade you, sir, for one more song?
Definitely. Let me just make sure.
He gets to tell you all to be live or something. Okay. When you get there, tell us what it is.
Yeah. Okay. This is an East Kentucky banjo song called Morphine. And I'm playing it overhand, clawhammer style, using those hammer-offs, pull-offs, open string pull-offs, I think they're called. But anyway, Morphine. I took morphine last Saturday night. Thought I took it in that morphine way. The doctor hadn't come just as he did. Thought I'd be in my grave today. Then it's peaches, honey, and rockin' right. Baby, I will tell you the dream. I was on the street where the pocket full of money and a quarter in a big dice game. But when I woke, it was all just a joke, and I didn't have a penny to my name. Ain't that a scandal and a shame?
Terrific stuff. What a way to finish. What a song to finish on. That was fantastic.
Thank you very much.
Keith, I'm looking forward to seeing you in the future. You know that musical brother, an old friend, and what a banjo player you've turned out to be. And I want to say thank you so much for joining us on Play It By Ear. Anything to say to the good folks before we sign off, as it were?
Just a real pleasure to be with you, and I've loved every minute. And thank you so much for having me. And I hope you like what you've heard. And if it persuades any of you to pick up the banjo and have a wail away, then I wish you all the best of luck.
In fact, that will be my last question. Any advice to newbies?
Play, play, play. Practice, practice, practice. Play every day if you can. And take it slowly. Because we all want to start out, we all want to be really quick. We all want to frail and tap the head and make a lot of noise. But really, when you're starting to learn things, the slower the better. You can always speed them up later, but you need to start out slow.
I couldn't have put it better myself. If I can add something, enjoy it. Do it for fun.
Definitely. That's always a must.
Somebody wants you to.
Don't do it because you feel like you have to.
No.
Do it because it's bringing you pleasure first and foremost.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, you've brought us a lot of pleasure today, Keith. Thank you again.
Thank you very much for having me, old friend, and I'll speak to you soon.
You will. Take care.